Drawing this frog, I would say, was probably one of the most difficult animals I've actually drawn because I don't know. Honestly, I think it was just really the texture of it. And then drawing it so small, I felt like didn't really leave me enough room to add in all those details. So here I am trying my best to make sure I have all the textures in there, all the different colors. I will say I think the color of this frog is why I had a big struggle because there's just so many different colors that were happening. But let's just get right into it. So I am applying a variety of different greens. So I'm adding mint green, like a bright neon green. I'm adding a very pale, I don't even know what you would call that, like an icy green. And then I'm also applying some lighter blues in there because it's a gray tree frog. So there are other colors that are involved in it besides just green. And then the light blue adds a gray tint to it already. So that's what I use for the first layer. The first couple of layers, yes, I usually apply lighter colors. So that's what I'm working on right now. And then usually when I'm first starting a portrait, I tend to play around with different colors just to kind of figure out the correct blending of all those colors, and then like the correct colors themselves, just to make sure that I'm getting the right one. So usually the beginning, it takes me a little bit longer than closer towards the end, especially when it comes to the face, because there's a lot more detail that goes into the face compared to the body. So it's going to take me longer, and it'll probably take you longer too. So just keep that in mind. Like if you feel like you're just taking forever trying to work on the face, just trust the process and know that it won't take that long ultimately. And then with a black color pencil, I apply these really dark, I don't even know what you would call this. It's just very random lines around the eyes. They're very squiggly and just haphazard, but it makes it look more realistic because that is the texture that's around the eyes themselves. And so if you just keep going, make sure that your pencil is nice and sharp, especially when you're drawing small sections or small portraits. But I definitely use a lot of that light blue to build up those layers, mostly because I don't want it to be too brightly green. I want it to have that hint of gray. I want the green to be toned down, but I do want a variety of green at the same time. So with the limited amount of colored pencils that you might have, think about that. Think about like, okay, so how do I need to achieve this kind of color? So you're going to end up using a variety of different colors to get the texture, the color, the shading as well. So you're going to have darker spots in some areas and lighter spots in others. And then for the texture part here, I'm using a cool gray to create a sense of texture. Now I do go back over that too because there's a lot more details, but I'm moving on just so I can kind of get a good grasp on everything. But there are a lot of those black little squiggly lines, and then I use a dark cool gray instead of a warm gray to create more sense of depth. So I have the darker squiggly lines, and then medium colored, and then lighter color squiggly lines. And then I even use the white color pencil to do the same thing, so it creates more of the highlighted effect of some of those squiggly lines. I don't know what they're called. I'm just calling it squiggly. I'm so basic when it comes to describing things. Especially if I'm not familiar with the animal, I'm not going to be able to necessarily explain it to you to the best of my ability. But just bear with me and my limited vocabulary here. But I end up using this mint green towards the end, and it kind of actually blended everything together, so it made it look a little bit more cohesive and just matching things more. But now you can actually still see a sense of depth between the top of the head where the eyes are and the back of the body. So it's a little bit of a different color green and different, little bit of a different texture. So it's less detailed in the foreground or the background and more detailed in the foreground. And then for the nose, it's the same thing, the mouth and the nose area. Like the nose you could see I've already made that, but the mouth is pointed in. Everything goes directed right to the middle. So kind of think of like the shape of that. It's almost like two arrows going in. So when drawing proportionally, that's how I, in my head, picture things, is shape by shape, and what shape is referred to each part of the body itself too, so that proportionally I can get a better understanding of where everything is properly placed. So like the shape of the head itself on the left and right hand side, you have to think about, okay, is it more rounded? Is it more straight? Is it in between those two? So for this, it's a little bit of both. So you definitely need to consider those things as you're moving along and working section by section. I know sometimes section by section can be very daunting because you're not necessarily completing the other parts of the body to have a better understanding of proportion for the whole body itself. But for some reason, for me, if I complete a section first and then move on to the next, I have a better understanding of where everything actually is supposed to be placed. Now, under the chin, I'm using that cool gray, it's a darker cool gray, to create almost like these dry, scaly look to it, and then using the black to create some of those dots. But I also use a light umber, it's a raw umber, to also use for like some of the shading in there, so you can kind of see that there's some bumps underneath the chin, or wrinkles in a way, and that also creates a good sense of depth, because then you see some darker areas and then some lighter areas. But then you can go back over some of what you've done and just kind of like play around with it. So now I saw that it didn't have enough color, so I added some brown underneath. And then I really just didn't like how texturized everything was, so I tried to blend it out to the best of my ability. You can use lighter colored pencils to do this, or you can just use a blending utensil, but I don't like using blending tools unless it is the mineral spirit oil. But for this one, I don't remember if I actually used it or not, but it was such a small portrait, I believe I didn't want to do it just yet. I wanted to play around with it before using the mineral spirit oil to blend everything, because I really wanted to have everything like more in control of the colors and the sharpness. And now I'm using just a light blue color to create a good contrast. Okay, so there's cool tones and there's warm tones, and their cool tones are greens, blues, and purples, and warm tones are red, orange, and yellow. And for this, I'm using a blend of the two. So the green and the blue are both cool tones, but it creates a good sense of depth because I'm also using some warm tones like the raw umber colors and a little bit of some browns to work in some of the more, the darker areas, the more shaded areas. I also use darker raw umber, which looks like a very natural mossy green color, or it's not even mossy. It's just a natural earthy green color. And what that does is it also kind of brings about a richer color scheme overall. And it creates a nice reflection based off of the environment too. So I end up using that darker raw umber, which is this right here, to in almost all my portraits, because almost all animals will have almost a natural reflection in their fur, in their skin tone, from the environment itself. So you definitely want to consider that. Consider using different colors you just wouldn't think about actually using overall, and play around with it and just see what happens, because that's what I ended up doing. I was very, very intimidated by color pencils when I first started because I was afraid that I wasn't going to have a good understanding and be able to draw with a variety, and I didn't understand how to blend them. I was really scared about color theory in general. But the more I played around with colors, the less I limited myself with my creativity. And then I ended up enjoying the process itself because of that. So don't limit yourself in your head at all. That creates doubt, creates fear, and blocks the creative flow that we are trying to achieve here. So yes, I did use some mineral spirit oil for the arms. And I think the reason why I did that was because there's not a whole lot of detail that's really happening there. So it was just easy to go ahead and use. But now I'm using the black to create those little specks everywhere. If you haven't noticed, what I do is the first couple of layers is more about the lighting itself, working on the blending of the colors, and then getting the shape down a little bit, and then the lighting, creating where the highlights are and the midtones and the shadows, and working on that. And then you can start with the details after you've applied the first couple of layers. I used to start with details first, and I noticed that it would take 1,000 times longer for me to complete a portrait, and I was really just frustrating myself, and I wasn't enjoying the process at all. So this is how I work. I know some people don't necessarily work that way. They work with every single stroke being that detail to begin with, but I just know that I can't do that. Mentally, I cannot do that. So I know there's probably a lot of other people out there that are the same way too, where they don't want to start out with just the details. They want to actually get a good first couple of layers down, and have more fun with it. It's not, you don't want to restrict yourself on this. This is how it has to be done. I must have details first and then move on, because if I don't see any results right away, then I'm not going to like the outcome. But I hate to say it, it's not, drawing itself, it's not about the outcome. It's about that process and about enjoying the process and the journey of getting to use color pencils and blending and playing around, being creative. It's about being creative. And if you are so focused on it being perfect, you're blocking that creative flow. So just practice, enjoy, and don't think that you have to use the exact same color pencils that I use. I definitely suggest using your own critical thinking skills and thinking outside of the box of, okay, so I see that she uses this brown color, but maybe I will use a more reddish brown color or more purple brown, or, like, think for yourself and try different things so that you're not stuck on, this is how things must be. Don't be so rigid about it. Art is not rigidity. It is absolutely about creativity. And now you can really see that there's the reason why I struggled with this one here was mostly the lack of detail that was actually happening, like the arms. It's just so abstract looking, but I really couldn't get a whole lot of detail, for one, because the picture just didn't have a lot of detail for the arms. And then for two, it was a smaller portrait. And then for three, it's a reptile, and reptiles have so much like abstract details going on that I struggled to comprehend what I needed to do next, essentially, and how should I apply the details and have a good sense of depth when these scales are just so like crazy random all over the place, but they also have, it's very like chaotic pattern at the same time. So that's what I ended up struggling with, but I think I ended up doing pretty good because a lot of my customers really enjoy this portrait, and if they can tell what it is, then I'm happy. I get a lot of comments that say they think that my art is photography, and I used to take it personally. I used to get offended by it, but now it's actually more of a compliment, because that means that even though I'm very like, when you look at the details, you could see that it's not, a photograph. You could tell that it's some sort of art itself. But it's also that it's to the point that I can trick people too, So it's kind of fun. It's fun. And you can use an electric eraser too to create a little bit more details. So that's what I'm doing here, is just adding in some highlighted areas, and it's a lot of fun to use that. If you're interested in any of the materials that I'm using, you can order one of my materials list ebooks on my website. I'll have it linked below. But if you're also interested in learning to draw, you can take any of my drawing classes where it's all sorts of different animals. That will be linked below as well. And it's at your own pace. I just tell you what kind of colors I'm using, and then tell you the techniques that I'm using, why I'm using the techniques, and so on and so forth. But it's a lot of fun. It's nice background music. I also have a little PDF file that you can download that has the instructions beforehand as well. So check that out. It will be in the description below. And I really hope that this video was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to comment down below, or if you've got comments, tell me that this, what do you think about this frog? Does it look fairly realistic towards the end, or do you think I could have gone further? Let me know what you think, and if you have any questions too, let me know. But thank you so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.